Hey everybody, I am Scotty J. Welcome back to Rock Titan Live. We have got an awesome show for you today. My next guest, he's a bona fide legend. And we have had him on Rock Titan Live before. And it's kind of funny because the last time we caught up, we were live in his hotel room. We were in person. And I must have botched our introduction, I don't even know, at least a half a dozen times. It was an unmitigated disaster. But that's the beautiful thing about, having a podcast and have the chance to go back and brush it up. But right now, we have him live. We have him live, but we're remote, okay? So as you can all see, I'm in my studio, and my next guest, he is one of the original guitarists for one of my favorite bands of all time. That is Genesis. He was inducted with them, and rightfully so, into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. He is one of the greatest guitarists on the planet Earth. He's inspired other guitarists in so many ways. He invented styles that are now considered like, if you can't do this, then you shouldn't pick up the guitar. We're talking about some double tapping, some sweep picking. Ladies and gentlemen, we have got Mr. Steve Hackett. Steve, how are you, sir?
Very good, very good. Thank you for the nice build-up.
Well, I do my best. And, like I said, this is a little bit different from the first time we met. Now you get to be in the comfort of your own home, I'm guessing. And now here I am in my studio. You never know what you're going to see up against this background, although I have a pretty good idea. But last time we caught up was in Philadelphia, in your hotel room, and you were performing live, and we were talking about a little bit of, return to Genesis. That's what was going on. And my God, you've been a very, very busy man ever since.
Yeah, it's Genesis, like I said earlier, was an interesting band in all its incarnations, with all its changes of personnel, and whether we were a 5-piece, a 4-piece, and that became a 3-piece after I left. Nonetheless, I think that, certainly as a live entity, the band really turned in some extraordinary shows. They were some extraordinary characters to work with, very, very talented. We still talk. I've just had communication with Phil and with Peter Gabriel.
Wow.
Just recently, and Richard McPhail, who wasn't in the band but was the original singer with them right back in school days. So it's very interesting to catch up with them. And we were the young blades at that time, but we're all still plugging away in one way or another. We're all involved with music still. That doesn't stop.
And that is so refreshing, Steve. And it's funny. I mean, obviously, I'm dating myself a little bit here, but as I told you before we formally kick things off, Genesis was really one of my very first loves in music. And just ironically, because of when I was born, 1975, and when I got into music. So the very first Genesis album that really grabbed my attention was And Then There Were Three. And of course, that's the very first album that you weren't a part of.
That's right, yeah.
You had embarked on your solo career just before that.
Well, like I said, I think the band was very interesting, both, prior to my involvement, and then it was interesting after Peter Gabriel left. So we went from being a 5-piece, with the hugely talented Peter Gabriel,
right,
to Phil Collins taking over on vocals, so we made 2 or 3 things as a 4-piece, Trick of the Tail, Wind And Wuthering, and then the live album that was seconds out. And then I left basically to do solo work. And to work with other people. I realized it was time for me to work with some other greats. I include all the guys in Genesis as greats. Even before my time, Anthony Phillips was a great songwriter, guitarist. But then, I got to work with some personal heroes. Richie Havens, the late great Richie Havens, who I befriended in London when he was supporting us. So ironic, we've been his support act at one time. Then we grew in stature. He supported us, and I invited him to dinner and said, all night I wanted to say, would you like us to do something together? And right at the end of the evening, he said, we should do something together. And I said, okay. And a few months later, I phoned him up and I said, at that time I was doing meditating, and I was, whilst I was doing TM, I could hear his voice singing the opening lines, which I hadn't yet written, to Icarus Ascending. And I phoned him up immediately. I thought, this is a premonition. I phoned him up and I said, I just, in my head, I've heard you singing this song. He said, I can hear it already, man. It sounds great. Let's do it. And that's what we did. And he was hugely positive. I think an embodiment of a lot of the positive sides of the 1960s.
Nice.
A really great character to work with.
Well, timing is everything, and it seems like you've been a man who's been at the right place at the right time for a huge part of your career. And nothing could be truer than with the recent live launch of your newest live album, Selling England by the Pound, and Spectral Mornings live at the Hammersmith. Oh, Steve, I wish I was there. That's all I can say. We got to catch up with you in Philadelphia, but I wish it was at the Hammersmith when you were putting on this show. Absolutely incredible. And I guess it makes some sense. I was going to ask you kind of what went into your thought process, why support Selling England by the Pound, and which was Genesis' 5th album, and then Spectral Mornings, your 3rd studio album. But with Selling England by the Pound, that was the 40th anniversary.
Yeah, I basically, Selling England by the Pound was my favorite Genesis album. I felt that my contribution to the band came into its own with the playing and the technology and various things. Lots of things I'm very proud of with that album. And I wanted to do the kind of show that was a sort of blockbuster in terms of a favorite Genesis album and a favorite solo one, put them together. So you had Selling England, you had Spectral Mornings. Plus I did some things from the more recent album, which was At the Edge of Light. And
yes.
And although that's not billed on the front cover, that stuff was very well received, and it did better in the charts than anything I've done for years. So I think it was, let's put it this way, to have great material when you're doing live stuff, it really helps. In the early days, I would just go and see someone who was a great player or a great blues band or something, and their music changed, and you started to get all these bands that were working with really through composed stuff as it all started to change, as the huge spontaneity of the hugely talented Jimi Hendrix gave way to bands that were ensemble based, the whole band playing as one unit as it became more disciplined. I don't know if you could have a whole band of 5 different Jimi Hendrixes all lasting away at once. I don't know.
Right.
That would be something else. But for the rest of us, we invested in this ensemble sound, and that way round. When the first time you heard this material, it had wide dynamics and it was full of surprises, and it seems to come out of nowhere. With the use of mellotron and synth and light shows and early examples of that, even though you think, oh well, he's talking about old technology here. It was cutting edge during its time, so I wanted a band that could turn on a dime and do lots of different kinds of music, and Genesis came very close.
Genesis was absolutely incredible. For me, it's still a regular part of my playlists. And I want to pick on you in a little bit. I'm going to hit you on some things because, man, if it's one thing this last year has taught us, it's that you really can't take anything for granted. You really fully can't appreciate something until it's gone. Like all those old cliche sayings. We've pretty much lived them in spades over the course of 2020. And I think I speak not just for myself as a music fan and someone in the media, as I'm speaking to someone as yourself, a very prominent musician. We cannot get over everything that has been 2020 soon enough, and hopefully 2021 lends itself something more similarly to 2019 when you decided to put out, or record your live performance at Hammersmith, which I thought was very interesting. What, Steve, made you want to, what was it about that venue, that show, that you said, this is going to be our live album?
Well, you have to plan for these things. We knew we were going to do this show. We were going to play in all sorts of places. We got to accomplish a great deal of it in Europe, Scandinavia, United States, etc. But we still found that we were halfway through a tour, and all these places closed down around us because of the COVID crisis.
Yeah, that's a good word.
We decided we were going to record at what people think of as an iconic venue, Hammersmith in London, call it Hammersmith Odeon, the Apollo, whatever it's gone. Basically to rock fans, it's always going to be the Hammersmith Odeon. And to do this blockbuster show with insurmountably good material, just to see Sally England alone performed from beginning to end, which is not something that we did when it was Genesis as a band, but we weren't capable of doing certain things all the way through. We just, like any band, you think, this song will probably work live, this one won't do, and but somehow there was something robust about that set, and it went through a lot of changes. It was very English, it was very musical. It's not easy to learn to play that or to relearn it. In fact, our singer Nad Sylvan said the Battle of Epping Forest, which has got all these different characters in it. It took him 3 months to learn that song alone. So,
he's got a great voice. What a voice!
He does have a great voice. Yeah, he has a very big, stentorian voice, brass-like voice. He's got this big sound.
Yeah.
He's Swedish-American, American-Swedish.
Okay.
And he does a great version of all those songs we did with Gabriel, all those songs we did with Collins. He does a great version of that, and he makes great albums on his own as well. So he's very talented, very theatrical. I think he's a worthy successor to both Gabriel and Collins doing this sort of material. He lives it, he loves it, he personifies it. He was put on earth to do it. That's how I see him. It was always his dream to be doing this, and he's always thanking me for bringing his dream alive. And I think that he's the man for the job. The abandoned place that was once inhabited by Peter Gabriel and Phil Collins, for whatever reasons they distance themselves from that, and then occasionally slip up and find that they're maybe being browbeaten by Sting and Peter Gabriel by the pound, dancing with the moonlit night. Eventually, everyone cracks under torture. But meanwhile, and Phil doing Los Endos, either with Genesis or with his big band, you can't argue with the legacy of the band. You can you can say, oh, I'm not going to do that because we did that when we were all students and we all had beards and
Right.
and wasn't that in bad taste? But I don't have that opinion. I think that a lot of it was, the zenith, the apogee of the height of mixing those genres together, sometimes in the same song. Just a song like Dancing with the Moonlit Night. Where did that come from? It's everyone pitching in, writing their own bits, and so I don't think there's another song like it on the planet, really. You can't do it. You can emulate it, you can
Right.
copy it, but I don't think you can do. But maybe that's the real challenge. If you can come up with some of that, then great. It's very tricky. Lots of changes, but that's its appeal. Besides its social comment and all that kind of stuff, it still has a mystique, even for me.
Wow. Hearing you say that, that there's still a mystique to it for you, that's pretty incredible. It's just so amazing, though, because the sound that Genesis is known for, that they produced and that you've carried on that legacy so well, it really hasn't been replicated in any way ever since. There's been so many different genres of music where a lot of bands will kind of hop into the fray and, kind of take it, run with it, try to make it to their own. But as far as like that progressive rock, Genesis really was at the forefront of the whole thing. I mean, no sound existed before it, and I think with very few exceptions, there have been examples of that after. But I went back and I was poring over a bunch of videos from you guys, in the 70s. And man, what a bunch of hippies. I mean, it was an era unto itself. But Peter Gabriel, what a wild character he was. And again, for my generation, a lot of people, they didn't know him in the 70s. They didn't know him as Genesis. They knew him from his solo career in the 80s when he had so many huge hits and the videos that he made that were iconic on MTV. But what a character he was. I mean, there's really not anything like that anymore. I mean, and even then, looking back on it, the first thing when I'm watching Gabriel, I'm thinking David Bowie. Like Ziggy Stardust. He's like the only other character I can think of that even paralleled him. Can you think of anyone that's even in that same vein?
Well, I think, in terms of presenting songs theatrically, I can only really think of three. I can think of, as you say, David Bowie, Peter Gabriel. From the States, I would be thinking of Alice Cooper.
Okay.
In terms of being able to function almost as a kind of perhaps a ringmaster to present other things, to give other people space, and they all worked with great musicians. So you could say the similarities outweighs the differences, and I guess with Alice Cooper, there's the gallows humor aspect of that.
Right.
And there was another band, a Scottish band, the sensational Alex Harvey band, who I saw live in the UK, and they were damn good too.
Okay.
And they were extremely theatrical and extremely good. Just because you may not have heard of it doesn't mean to say it wasn't wonderful. And there have been great bands on both sides of the Atlantic. But in terms of frontmen who depict and personify the action, I think it's really the three that we're talking about there.
Yeah.
Certainly Bowie, all of that.
That's a Mount Rushmore. That is a Mount Rushmore right there. But one of the things that kind of caught me, Steve, Selling England by the Pound and Spectral Mornings at Hammersmith. Yeah. It was, you had a full orchestra. This wasn't like some 5-piece band. You had the whole orchestra out there. was this all your idea, or did you have input from some other outside influences?
Well, I had when we were doing the Palladium shows, we did uh, we did a couple of different London venues, and I was touring with an orchestra at the Heart of England Orchestra, and so really they were two separate shows. The Hammersmith show and the one at the Palladium had the orchestra, and of course, sound checks are rather extraordinary when you've got a whole symphony orchestra there. But they were great, and I had hoped to work with them this year, but of course, the new album, if I can mention that, under a Mediterranean Sky,
right?
We only have a handful of players on that,
Okay.
but it's still got a big sound, and it's still the thing that kicks off is orchestral perspectives and all of that. So it's still Cecil B. to Hackett. You know what I mean?
Cecil B. to Hackett. I love it. I love it. Oh, Steve, that's great. That's great. Well, I know you have to get running.
Not Rockmore.
Yeah. I know you have to get running, but there are a few more things I want to touch on, and then I'll let you go because are you over in England right now?
I'm in England. Yeah, I'm in England. It's nighttime here, and yeah, this is home. It's about 10 or 12 miles from the centre of London.
Okay.
So
all right.
me.
So you're 6 hours ahead of me. You are 6 hours ahead of me. But so everyone, if you haven't had a chance to check out Selling England by the Pound, which is one of Genesis' greatest albums, Stephen's favorite, all right, and then Spectral Mornings, that was his third studio album, and live at Hammersmith. Go check it out. There are multiple YouTube videos out there, very high quality. Go check it out. The sound is amazing. The video is amazing. But one of the things, Steve, that really blew me away, the last time you and I caught up in your hotel room, we were promoting The Night Siren, and we were talking Return to Genesis. And then after, I guess, the last time you and I caught up, At the Edge of Night, you put that out in 2019 because you and I caught up in 2018. I can't even believe that much time's gone by. And then we're already talking about Under a Mediterranean Sky. Under a Mediterranean Sky is what we have to look forward to here in 2021. So I guess since that is the follow-up to At the Edge of Light from 2019, can we expect a similar kind of sound out of you? Is this something very different?
The thing is that Under a Mediterranean Sky is basically an acoustic stroke orchestral album.
Okay.
Now it's instrumental. It's basically on the cover there's balustrades, and beyond that you see the Mediterranean Sea, the Mediterranean sky. And it's a place you want to stand on to get one of those extraordinary vistas. And each track is about another place in around the Mediterranean. So, for instance, there's a very Spanish-sounding track with orchestra. There's a very Turkish-sounding track. There's something that sounds Greek, and sometimes with world music influences. The duduk from Armenia, the tar from Azerbaijan. The idea of whirling dervishes, and there's an Egyptian sounding track which is Sirocco.
Wow.
And so it's that kind of album. Now, in parallel to that, I've been working on rock stuff as well.
Okay.
So, but in a way, Under a Mediterranean Sky it's going to come out in I think the last half of January.
Okay.
And it's a journeying album. You can't travel to all those places at the moment because if you do, you're in danger of catching something dreadful, worse than a cold. And right. But in a way, it's an album that it's allowed me to do what my dad did with paintings, which is he used to paint landscapes and much other things, and so I get to paint what these areas mean to me.
Oh, that's a great way to put it. Very cool.
In musical terms, so they do change style, these various tracks, but it's a classical guitar album. There's a
Okay.
bit of Arabian oud on it that I play, and tiny bit of other things, a Peruvian instrument called the charango that I use like a mandolin. But
Wow.
anyway, it's that. But at the same time, I'm working on rock stuff as well, and that's going very well. But of course, um, we're stopping for Christmas. Once I get myself, back in January, I'll be back on the horse, basically. Out of surgery, back firing on all cylinders again. That's going very well. I have some amazing performances from extraordinary players once again on that one.
Very cool. You are a warrior, Mr. Hackett. So you're doing okay on the physical front? I know you were telling me you
Yeah,
recently had surgery. We're
you know
good?
what? I think I turned a corner. I didn't feel very well yesterday,
Oh,
but 2 weeks out of surgery. But I started to feel a lot better today, and I was actually dancing today. Would you believe? You know,
really?
yeah, I
Wow.
was. Yeah, I said to my wife, I was dancing earlier along to a track we wrote together called "The Dervish and the Jinn." The Jinn spelled DJJINN, as in
Yes.
genie,
Genie,
as
yeah.
opposed to GIN, which is something that I won't be drinking for a very long time. Not even over Christmas.
Right
So,
on.
bin the eggnog. I'll just,
No juniper. No juniper for you. Yes.
I'll just be on tea and honey and, um, you know, not bread and water, no rations,
Okay.
but no drink for me, no poisons. Thank you very much.
All right.
But my favourite is Jack and Coke, and I've got to Jack Daniels and Coke is
Well, you're a Lemmy man, huh?
well, it's a funny thing because if the Scots hear me say this, it's like, what the hell are you doing having a colonial whiskey?
Well,
Um,
this is true. But, colonial whiskey and then again Scotch, I mean, worlds
okay,
apart. You got the oak taste and, the Kentucky
well,
taste. Very different.
let's just say that they've all got something to offer, and
Sure.
I do like my Scotch, but then again, I like to mix it with America's finest wine, Coca-Cola,
Right on.
and there you go.
Right
It's
on.
but
Right
as I
on.
say, I won't be doing that. That's all. That's all in the imagination. I won't be
Yeah.
doing. Well, my doctor says no. You need about a month to 6 weeks to recover.
Okay. Well, listen to the doctor. Listen to the doctor because I know I speak for I'm speaking for myself, of course. But a lot of other people, I think it would be absolutely epic to hear Steve Hackett get back with Phil Collins, Peter Gabriel, Mike Rutherford, and Tony Banks. I think something like that absolutely needs to happen. You know?
Well, yeah, I think it sounds like a nice idea. Um, although we talk, nobody has mentioned that. The elephant in the room remains in the corner, shall we say? And before you ask me, because I know they're touring, and people say, "Oh, are you going to get up for the last Domino tour?" Well, I think I've got a lot more dominoes in me than the last fucking domino. Anyway, but the truth is, I'm not going to be. I'm going to be touring at the same time they are. So
Okay.
I've got my commitments, they've got theirs, and you know, my harmonica is always ready.
Right
To
on, right on.
to
Well,
do that.
I'm just thinking, Steve, because you are such an amazing musician and you have such a tremendous legacy. I mean, my God, there's just not a lot of musicians that can ever say that they've had the experience and the accomplishments and the accolades that you've had, the opportunity to work with the amazing musicians that you've had a chance to work with, to inspire other musicians the way you have. One who I know was inspired by you, who we lost not too long ago and way too soon, Eddie Van Halen.
Eddie
Not
Van
to end
Halen.
on any kind of a somber note, but I mean, what a
No.
legendary guitarist who was very specifically influenced by you.
Well, Eddie Van Halen, I think you end up influencing each other because I guess that's what it's about, really, and it's a huge loss to music to see him go.
Yeah.
And of course, in recent times, in terms of British guitarists, we've lost Peter Green, who I used to go and see before the formation of Fleetwood Mac,
Wow.
when he was playing with John Mayall's band, and he just filled Eric Clapton's huge shoes. And we absolutely loved him live. This is in 1966 when I first started going to see gigs, when I was a mere 16, so you can do the maths and work out how ancient I am now. But I loved, Peter Green was just great. If you want to hear great blues guitar playing, check out John Mayall, the version of So Many Roads, Otis Rush, So Many Roads, with the young Peter Green playing on that. There was a single, and on the other side was Looking Back. And on both those tracks, the guitar work is to die for on that. So you can see what fired me up at that time. And he's lost to, hopefully he's in the world of spirit somewhere. And
it's gotten to be a crowded house lately. But, Steve, that's exactly why I brought it up, though. I mean, we take so many things for granted. You think, oh, maybe it'll happen someday. And then all of a sudden, someday comes and goes, and there's no more opportunity for that to happen. And I mean, oh, man. I mean, again, the magic that you made, like 40 years ago, with this particular group of guys, they're all still here, and what you guys do together is absolutely unparalleled. It's insane. So I'm not going to beat this subject to death. I'm sure you're sick of it. I'm sure you hear it all the time. But just for me, as a fan, it would definitely be one of those things where, man, I would take out a second mortgage if I had to pay the ludicrous prices the Live Nation puts out there, to be able to go see basically the original lineup of Genesis. To me, that would just be lights out, mind blow, oh my God type moment. But yeah, I mean, it would be. But everybody, in the meantime, I am Scotty J. You are watching Rock Titan Live. I am here with the legendary Steve Hackett. And if you have enjoyed this podcast every bit as much as I know you have, just give us a little subscribe. Show us some love. Leave your comments. Give us a like. Don't give us a thumbs down. And if you do, explain yourself. But you got to see Selling England by the Pound and Spectral Mornings live at Hammersmith. You must go check that out. The videos are out there on YouTube. Absolutely incredible. Awesome sound. You get to see Steve just wailing away. Awesome stuff. And go check out At the Edge of Light. That came out back in 2019. All right. And we've got something new to look forward to. So be paying attention. Go to subscribe to all Steve Hackett stuff. We're going to put links in here so you can go check out Under a Mediterranean Sky when it comes out in 2021. Steve, it's been an honor and a privilege.
Thank you very much. It's been great talking to you, Scott. And, for everyone who's watching this or listening, I figured that, we've touched on mortality here. And the truth is that life is a leasehold and not a freehold. I don't know if that word applies. Okay, what we call leasehold means you buy a house, but you only get to keep it for a certain amount of time. Life is like this. Nobody knows how long it lasts. But one thing is for certain, that if you want to do something, don't let anyone stop you. This is a great time. We're all sort of confined to barracks kind of thing, all right? We're all in lockdown, but it's a great time to write that song, write that novel, do that thing, whatever it is that you want to do, just do it, because nobody knows how long it's all going to go on for, while it all works. Isn't it wonderful? Look at these fingers, whiz, 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 but hey, tomorrow we might be telling a different story. So positively get off your ass and go and do it, man, because no one is stopping you but you. Do not listen to the internal invalidator. You can do it. You can sing, you can play, you can dance. You are beautiful. Go celebrate yourself.
Right on. Words of wisdom and inspiration by Steve Hackett. Everyone, I hope you're paying attention. I am Scotty J. You're watching Rock Titan Live. We're out.
Cheers, Scott. Nice talking to you as ever.
Thank you, Mr. Hackett.